And criticism is mimi sasa nyinyi mnaniambia Ruto must go. Mimi nimesikia hiyo mara nyingi. Kulikuwa na Moi must go, kulikuwa na mwingine must go, kulikuwa na mwingine must go. Hii must go ni wimbo tu ya kawaida. There is no problem. Ndio shida iko wapi? So there is no problem. Mara wananiita sijui nini Zakayo, mara Kasongo, mara nini. I am not bothered. Hii ni majina tu ya kawaida, lakini I am focused. I am focused. We must get our education right. And I am very proud of what we are doing with our education. We must get our electrification right. We must get infrastructure right. And we must handle devolution properly so that we can all move the country forward. And I welcome any assistance from anybody so that we can make Kenya great. That is my mission. That is my commitment. And we are going to do this together.
Start beating it.
Probably before we come to that, you said that he said, I fight small people. I don't fight anybody. He says that I was fighting Farouk Kibet. Farouk Kibet is not a small man. He is a co-president in this country. Farouk Kibet runs the government. Everybody reports to him. The Inspector General of Police, the head of public service, cabinet ministers. William Ruto issues instructions to cabinet ministers through Farouk Kibet. Ministers tremble at his very sight. So, Farouk Kibet wanted to give instructions to Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua was elected by the people of Kenya alongside William Ruto. There is no way I would have allowed Farouk Kibet to give instructions to me. And let me tell you, Rogers, Farouk Kibet was trying to run my office, make appointments for people to come and see me. And initially, I thought it's okay, maybe that's how William Ruto wants us to work. Until I learned that Farouk Kibet was collecting money from people to come and see me, and I have nothing to give them in return. And I went and I told the president, Mr. President, I'm your principal assistant. Please, your personal assistant cannot give me instructions. And if you want to give me any instructions, you give them yourself and I obey them to the letter. But you cannot use your PA to order me around. And your PA is taking advantage to make money from people. And I told you, Mr. President, for your information, because I'm your advisor in this matter, I will be failing in my duty if I don't advise you and tell you what is happening.
Okay.
All the people Farouk Kibet is clearing to come and see you, he's collecting money. And there's hue and cry in town. And State House is getting very disrespected because it has become a center of corruption. All appointments of people coming to see you, Kibet is collecting money. And Mr. President, I think you need to check this. But if you want to continue with it, tell him to keep off my...
Welcome to Fireside, the Dome of Politics, Policy, and Polity. My name is Dismus Mokua. Karibu Noordean Khagai. We understand that you've made a lot of progress this week, so you'll keep us updated. Karibu Mwangale. I think the composition of this panel is really unfair because lawyers are going to have their cake and eat it at the same time.
I will speak as just ordinary, ordinary Kenyans.
Yes. Yeah, that is a legal language. So, Mwangale, what are your highlights of the week outside regarding Gashagua and GB Muturi and the echoes of war?
My highlight, well, I would just say the most notable thing for me this week was the release of the air accident investigation in respect of General Gola's death. General Gola and the other soldiers who perished together with him. And I was actually concerned that some politicians, especially, well, just two that I had very prominently, Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa, came out to say that report is not a true report. Kenyans should be told that General Gola was taken out, which for me was a little unfortunate because the process or the team that was set up to investigate that accident was above reproach, beyond reproach and above board. And I think if that was the outcome of the investigation, then I doubt that we should poke holes into it. There are those who want to ride on the name of General Gola, the late General Gola, and his death for political gain and expediency. And I think that is a very wrong thing to do. If the report says that the chopper crashed because of engine failure, then I think we should really believe that report. This was not an investigation like the one we had with Saitoti, where you had evidence that was bungled up. You had witnesses that were interfered with, including pathologists who had instructions to say specific things. I think this is one of those investigations that, for me, was above board. And for politicians to try and exploit it for their own benefit or for some political currency is really unfortunate for the country and for the family of the soldiers who perished in that accident.
And in any event, the investigation was done with, the way they would say, the military precision and efficiency.
Yes.
And anybody who has ever watched air crash investigations would understand that this kind of investigation is not just domiciled in Kenya.
Yeah.
The equipment suppliers come on board. It's an international agency.
Yeah.
So when a local politician says that the outcome has been compromised, it means you are blaming other suppliers who are not necessarily Kenyans.
Yeah.
They would be from the US, from the UK. And with this supply chain, you'll find the suppliers from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I doubt whether any equipment supplier would want to have their reputation going through the mud simply because of the local political situation in Kenya.
Yeah,
but it's the case that these politicians who are making those unacceptable conclusions, obviously they're looking for political mileage.
Yeah.
Because how would they know the cause of death, yet they have no capacity to do the investigations? It's really unacceptable. And that is the challenge we have in Kenya.
Yeah.
That even when it stops raining, we'll blame a politician for that there is no rain. Just like Noordean is blaming a politician for poor drainage in the compound. Noordean, what was your highlight of the week?
Let's make the road work. Before I say my highlight, seeing that I have interest in the report he just spoke about.
What interest?
I'm a very close friend to the son of the general.
Oh, okay.
We actually went to school together, so we know each other. And I do believe, as rightfully says, for politicians to come out and say, oh, he was taken out and eat like the way they're saying, you also have to understand there's a family that is still mourning, which I know they're still up to date. They can never get over that, So you have to be sensitive, and if at all you feel that thing was shoddy and you keep saying that he was taken out, then substantiate. But if you can't, then give the family space to move on with their lives and try and cope, actually, with the fact that he's no longer there. Not just him. The others who died, because he didn't die alone. You realize? So
but let me just stop you there. You're raising a very pertinent issue. It appears that politicians in Kenya have got some immunity. They can make reckless statements.
Yes.
They can commit murder. They can do whatever they want to do. And we just look at them and say they've lowered the bar. As a lawyer, is there any penal or criminal consequence to this kind of a statement when you have a politician of rank who is actually a lawyer? He goes ahead and he makes reckless statements, which can even be a threat to our national security. Are there no consequences?
Yeah, you see, ordinarily, if we were in a country that functions or that things work, he would have been called already to substantiate whatever he's saying. But you see, we're in a country where a politician will say whatever he or she wants to say, and it will end there. They'll call it political gimmicks or whatever. But you have to understand that when you make such an allegation, when you say someone was taken out, so the question is who took him out? And it seems that you have information.
And it's not just, I know you're not supposed to say that, it's not just a normal Kenyan,
yeah.
But it is the head of KDF, a four-star general. You make these reckless statements and then you go back to your home and have coffee.
You see, ordinarily he's not a normal Kenyan, because you see, his security is closer to that of the president. You realize? That's why there were questions as to why was he using that aircraft first and foremost, because his aircraft should be the same as the Air Force One the president uses. But we had that conversation that all politicians are using the military choppers. Then Duale came up with that circular that no one will use the military choppers, but Juzi too, they're back to using them, if you see. So at the end of the day, we have to ask pertinent questions.
May the circular had time limits.
But honestly, you see, those are the things we're talking about. If we were a functioning state, those things wouldn't be happening because they take these choppers to go and do harambes. What is the reason for doing that?
Just harambes? Don't you remember during the Garissa incident, we were told that a policeman of rank and the chopper was in Mombasa.
Exactly. You see, so those are the questions. You see, and when you ask that, they will tell you, oh, by the way, you're asking too many questions. But the reality is, what is the status of our aircrafts, the equipment, how old are they? They keep saying they are old. The only problem I have, yes, they are old, but when we open that conversation, then it becomes a procurement issue. Then someone wants to make money. That is the only issue, that conversation. Otherwise, we do have to modernize our equipment. But we will modernize an equipment, someone will make a budget that is 3 times what is the actual price. And that is the saddest reality. I think those are the lessons we need to learn. But as he rightfully says, the politicians need to give us a break as well. And if you have something that is concrete, then substantiate. My highlight happens to be that we have come to realize it's now public knowledge that clearly ODM is captured. You know, remember that statement by Malema once on his parliament, that he's holding the ruling party by the scrotum. Now we have a situation where this president of today, seeing that he can call for a meeting to discipline the SG of a political party where party day sits exactly in front of him and say that they can discipline him. So they no longer have room to say that. You know, they keep saying we're not in government. So they no longer have room to say that we're not in government. Because you see, they're in government or outside depending on situation. So, right?
But if you're making reference to President Ruto, he said that he will call the founding members of ODM.
No, he's a liar.
He did not talk about ODM.
No, he's a liar. He's not a founding member of ODM. And we need to be honest as well.
Who are the founding members of ODM?
If you look at the history of ODM, how did ODM come about? The 205 referendum, right? Where was he? He was SG of Kano, right? There was no party called ODM at the time, right?
There was a movement.
You remember, by the time we were moving to having ODM, there was a split. The founding members are the founding members of Wiper, and like Raila and Imanyara, those and Kones, Kipkalia, those are the Henry Kosgei, those are the founding members. He actually left Kano. Remember once he said, "Ile chama ya jogo hata nimewacha." Then he joined ODM. So how do you become a founding member if you join a party that was ODM?
But he was a member of the Pentagon.
Yes,
those are the founding members.
That is true, but he can't as a founding member. You see,
maybe that foundation took long to.
It took a while to have the foundation.
So at the end of the day, he has rightfully shown that yes, they're in government, and we have known this, but they keep lying that they're not.
So you're suggesting Raila Odinga is captured?
No, he's captured. You have to be honest.
So he surrendered his agency to President Ruto.
It's actually where the bread is being buttered right now, and it's being buttered by the president. That is why. Do you see how busy his office has become, the capital of his office? He's receiving delegations. You know, when you look at people like Junet speak, when you look at people like Opio and I tell the president that those who are saying you're going somewhere, you're not going anywhere. The sycophants in those, that's what Orengo was talking about. The sycophants in that, it shows you they are deep inside. All right? Joe once told us that those ukikuja president will come for you. It tells you they are going where the bread is being buttered. He just said if things change, they will change. Because you see, the sad reality about our politics, there has to be betrayal. Betrayal in the city is the constant factor. So we wait to see when or who betrays one another. But at the end of the day, if things remain as they are, that party will split into two.
ODM?
Yes, because there are people in that party who can't express themselves. And if they really try to conform to the new age politics of today, but if they are left to be their own selves, I pity my good friend the SG. I know sometimes, you remember when they were signing that thing, that MOU, you could see his face when he was reading. Sarai and the dama were behind him, or even making faces, you see. So you imagine the kind of people, the split that is bound to happen, of course. Because one, there are those who run the party, because our parties are owned by individuals. And then you find a situation where there are those who like to express a different opinion. Yeah,
actually, I want to make that point because when you're saying ODM is going to split, you are assuming that ODM is a political party. But even a common man in the street will tell you that ODM and Raila Odinga synonymous. So is Raila going to split?
No, he won't split.
So is ODM going to split?
You see, in ODM, they're officials, they're leaders. So you have those who have expressed that they do not subscribe to this broad-based. One of them is the CI governor. The other one who has constantly said that if ODM supports this current regime, they will lose. The other person is the one who's trying to become governor of Nairobi, someone like Babu Winu. And the others, they are the likes of Caleb Amisi and et al. So it tells you that there are those who are sycophants, like the Opio Wandais, like the Junets, and et al. And then there's this other side. And then there's Baba. The only problem with the Baba is that you never know where Baba is. Because...
But you've indicated is where the bread is buttered.
He likes... You see, in such a confusion is when he thrives. Because he will talk to... there's this allegation or rumor that he will tell you one thing, he'll tell the other person one thing, and then he'll do that totally different from the both of you. So what he does is what only he knows.
But you've indicated, and your point suggests that you understand Kenya's history very well. There are many prominent politicians who left ODM. The current president left ODM. Musalia Mudavadi left ODM. Amason Kingi left him. Whether they were kicked out or no, that is semantics. But ODM has remained ODM. So are you suggesting if somebody like, say, Sifuna leaves ODM, or another politician who is unhappy with the status quo, ODM will be a chapter in history books?
No, of course ODM dies when Raila dies. And we have to be open.
So your point is, your argument is invalid?
No, it becomes weak when they leave, of course. The same way when those who left a mark on it. Of course, there are those vibrant leaders who, when they leave, of course, leaves a hole somewhere. But it will finally have its a tombstone when Raila Odinga is not no longer in politics. That is obvious, of course.
Mwangale wants to say something.
Yeah, Raila Odinga will not be around for too long. Well, at least. No, that didn't come out.
Yeah, because now.
let me qualify.
You want to refresh your statement?
Yeah, he will not be around for too long within ODM for various reasons. And once Raila Odinga steps away from active participation in ODM, even President retired, the late retired President Moi, wielded a lot of influence within KANU until he could no longer wield that kind of influence. Yes, he was alive, but people were not going to him for pertinent decisions within KANU. A time will come and Raila Odinga will exit. He will get into affairs where people will just be going to him for photo ops. They went to met Mzee, wherever he will be.
And listen to stories.
Yeah.
He's an encyclopedia, so it's a reservoir of knowledge.
He's been around for a while. But the fact is, as Noordean says, ODM, as we know it today, will disintegrate. There are certain vibrant voices who feel they are heir apparent to the throne of Raila Odinga within ODM. And then you have the usual mandarins, those who have been with Raila Odinga from the beginning. They were with him, they have transited with him over the parties that he has had in the past. Those ones also feel they have ownership to ODM that is superior to the young ones who they claim are making a lot of noise. One of the things that I have noted over the last couple of months is the fact that the SG of ODM appears to be very quick to anger these days. And in events,
easily irritable.
Yes, and in events that are in Luo Nyanza, he's very brazen. If you look at the funerals he has attended, the meetings he has attended in Luo Nyanza, he comes out guns blazing. He usually is very straightforward, but when he's in Luo Nyanza, he has a different cloak on him. I don't know whether that is so that he endears himself to Luo Nyanza, or whether there is something in Luo Nyanza that he's targeting. But if Raila Odinga were to step away, Sifuna, the SG of ODM, may not stay quite a lot or quite a long time within ODM. Because those who feel they have ownership to ODM that is superior to those ones who are now youthful do not really buy into his brand of politics. There are certain people within ODM, by the way, who are very straightforward politicians. They are uncompromisable. But just because they cannot step out of ODM today, they have to bear with, these kinds of machinations that ODM is known for, or Raila Odinga is known for. And Noordean has mentioned Sifuna. During the time when they were signing that MOU at KICC, Sifuna came in with jeans and a jacket. He came in with an untucked shirt. It looked like
careless.
Yeah, he didn't want to be there. Everyone else had dressed for the occasion. For him, he put out a statement of defiance. Whether that statement of defiance was agreeable to Raila Odinga or not, it put him or it pit him against certain individuals within ODM. Unfortunately for Edwin Sifuna, those individuals control the purse within ODM. I don't think Sifuna has the kind of money that is required to run a party as big as ODM. So in the next 1-2 years, by the time we're getting to 2027, ODM, as we know it, will have disintegrated. The party structure will remain, but those we have known to be on the forefront of ODM will have formed other vehicles to take them to whatever offices they would want.
Now, ODM stands for the Orange Democratic Movement. So one would assume that there's democracy within ODM.
They would assume wrong.
Yeah, but I don't recall ODM having an election. So what gives Raila mandate as an ODM party leader and all these other officials within the political party? Where do they derive their mandate from?
Well, if you ask Sifuna, he will tell you they derive their mandate from from their constitution and the party organs, and the fact that NEC, keeps postponing elections.
So they derive the mandate from postponing elections.
Because you have the right to postpone an election for whatever reasons within the party, but people from ODM. There was a time we had somebody from ODM who almost cut off my neck. But people from ODM are very protective.
You're talking about Meshach Odede?
Yes, Meshach. I didn't want to mention his name lest he comes after me next time. But people from ODM are very protective of the party. They do not want to see any fault with their party leader or any fault with their party structures. We've had now a few... now, I don't know whether the elections have been concluded, but just 2 weeks ago in Luo Nyanza, you had a lot of violence. One person was killed because of the tumultuous elections there. And it goes to show you that what ODM as a party calls out in the government of the day, the excesses of government, the violence in elections, the unfair processes in electoral systems and decision-making within parties and even government, exists within their own party. And for them to always come out, call out government for this, call out government for corruption, call out government for this, and those very ills are existing within their party, for me is a little hypocritical.
In Japan, and I suspect Noordean has not been to Japan, they've got a philosophy they call wasabi philosophy, where you see the beauty in imperfections. And I think that is what happens within ODM. Whatever Raila does is right. Yeah. And when he's wrong, he's actually right. It's like they say the customer, the consumer is king. Yeah. And the reason I think for President Moi, when he left KANU, most people are loyal to a party leader when he's the sole person who has capacity to
sustain the party.
Yeah, no, first of all, to inflict pain, that if you go against him, you're going to suffer. Yeah. And then when he's the only person with capacity to give a pleasure. Like right now, if anybody who is a member of ODM, if Raila wants that person to be the SG or the chairman or a deputy party leader, at the flick of his fingers, they will take that position. Yeah. But as soon as Moi left office, and then his party had been walloped, he didn't have that capacity. Yeah. Although obviously we know that he had a fat bank balance. Yeah. Now that Noordean doesn't know about the wasabi philosophy, what did you make of Rigiji's interview on KTN a few days ago?
I keep telling you, he's the gift that keeps giving, and the president never learns. You see, Gashagua has nothing to lose in this war of words they have.
So he doesn't even have a reputation?
See, they've destroyed his reputation. They say he's a tribalist. They say he's
who has destroyed Gashagua's reputation?
No, listen. I'm saying, in their eyes, they feel that they destroyed his reputation. That, he's a tribalist, he's incompetent and ital. But to his supporters, of course, that's a different story. Now, the only problem I have with the president is that he believes whenever he talks smack about Gachagua, it taints Gachagua. Now, the only issue we have at the end of the day is Gashagua opens up a can of worms, like he rightfully did. Do you know, Mwangale, that if we were in a functioning country, Parliament would have already done something about the allegations that Gachagua raised about the president? Do you know that since we lowered the bar for impeachment, a member of Parliament should have already moved one against the president, courtesy of the fact that the allegations that Gachagua came up with, the Kosovo issue, and the many other issues that the allegations that he raised.
Yeah, Sudan.
The Sudan.
DRC.
Exactly. All those things, if you had a functioning parliament, not a bunch of those Hosanna singers and clappers, would actually see something different. Because whatever he raised, again, we said that politicians make allegations without substantiating. Now he raised allegations. He says there's things he says he has recordings for, there are things he says he has documents for. Now, if you're in parliament, those are the things you follow up on. And if, for example, they are true, then the president of today does not have to be a president of this country, because those allegations are damning at the end of the day.
Yeah, you've raised fundamental issues, like for instance on the international relations, when he speaks about Kosovo and DRC, obviously there is those are misrepresentations. Like for instance, for the DRC issue, you have the Luanda process and the Nairobi process. For the Nairobi process, it's supposed to make sure that it's intra. All the affected parties within DRC have to come and have a conversation in a round table under President Kenyatta. Obviously, whatever President Kenyatta is doing, President Ruto is in the know. And in my view, some of those statements made by Rigathi Gachagua can expose Kenya to international reputation liabilities. So it's actually, when you watch that interview, you sit back and you ask yourself, who is actually speaking? Is it a former deputy president or it's a master propagandist? And as a lawyer, would you say there are a number of things that Rigathi Gachagua said in public and JB Muturi assaults the Official Secrets Act?
You see, and that's a question we keep asking. You see, people try to throw that in. I had Murkomen say that someone like JB can be arrested for divulging information that is given. Let me ask you a question. We have a right to information in this country. If at all whatever is being done is true, I can challenge the same through that access to information. And this secrecy, this oath of secrecy that they keep using. So if you're trying to sell Kenya and use that oath, so it's okay. We have to question some of these things. You see, at the end of the day, whatever they raised are pertinent issues to this country. That is number one. You talked about it. We have no reputation more so in Africa. And that is why Babaman lost. And I told you he'll get what he deserves. I didn't say what it was, but I told you he'll get what he deserves.
Yeah, you give an ambiguous statement that we can defend either way.
and that speaks about, one, our reputation, two, our president. And we have to be honest. If you saw the inauguration, was it Ghana? That told you everything about how his peers perceive him. All right? And he says he's ambassador number one of this country. Then you have to carry yourself.
What happened in Ghana?
Well, he didn't get a very good
There was no reception there. There was no reception.
So the reception was from his peers or the audience?
Well, the citizens.
The citizens.
But you see, you're comparing with the presidents who are neighbors across the road.
No, but you see, at the end of the day,
I mean, it's like if President Sulu comes to Kenya and in an eloquent Kiswahili, she gives a speech, people are very happy. When Mkapa comes, or rather, the late Mkapa, Kikwete, when they come, people are happy. But now if you go get somebody from the Gambia coming to Kenya, we don't know who the hell that is, would you expect people to break into a dance and song?
If his peers thought highly of him, his candidate would have won. If they thought highly of him.
You're the same person, and we agreed that these elections was influenced by language, religion, and other factors.
There's all that, but you see, like we rightfully said, the reception there by the citizens was off. But you see, the peers work with him, all right? The same way we know him as the people of this country is the same way they know him.
So you expected his peers to mobilize a crowd?
No, listen, this is what I'm saying. and you see, this, I told you, our foreign policy is kuja tuongea tuwezi sana. We play where we are smart. We call you, we want to pass in between, and you can't at the end of the day. There's some Rubicons you can't pass. All right? There's some games like the Kosovo issue you can't pass. Those are games that you really don't need to get yourself into. All right? It's like we just want to make a deal and move on.
Is Trump playing the same? Kuja tuwezi kosana with tariffs.
If I may weigh in, even a broken clock is right at least once. But the people of Navaholo would have something to say about the character of Rigathi Gachagua. Navaholo is where he was DO for an extended period of time. Those who are crying, still crying.
Navaholo, in the interest
Navaholo
of Sharon, who may not know where Navaholo is.
Navaholo is in Kakamega County, in Bunyala. Navaholo is a constituency still, but in the larger Bunyala area. And Rigathi Gachagua was DO there for a very long time. There are people there who were farmers during that time who would still narrate how Rigathi Gachagua, squandered their sugarcane, really robbed them of their sugarcane plantation.
The physical sugarcane or the earnings from their sugarcane?
The plantations and earnings. Number two, there are people who, at the time, Navaholo was highly forested. There's still a forest in that area. And there are people who tell you how Rigathi Gachagua, together with certain actors, connived to, log, trees and lumber out of that area to their own benefit and not to the benefit of the community. And in the other places he served, his family would also have something to say about it. The fact that a propagandist, and you rightly put it, a propagandist could say some things that are true does not make them a good person. So the fact that Rigathi Gachagua will come out and say William Ruto has been looting this country, we know that to be a fact. We also know. You actually know it as a fact. I know it to be a fact.
This is something you can defend in a court of competent jurisdiction.
Now it depends. It depends on what the other side would be. But these are things that are very plain. So the fact that Rigathi Gachagua would come out and say, "Oh, William Ruto has been doing this." William Ruto. I myself, I remember there was a time we were here with Owidi. And Owidi was on my neck asking me how I know that William Ruto is doing business at State House. But these are things that you can infer from the character of William Ruto, not newspaper headlines. I mean, how William Ruto has been working as a politician right from the time he was. Jirongo would say he was an errand boy, though he participated quite a bit in YK 92, towards the end of YK 92, to the time he was a member of parliament, to the time he was an assistant minister, deputy president. This is something that has followed him through. And the people who have worked with him would tell you that William Ruto will not go any place where he has no personal benefit. Those are things that we know. It is good for the country that one who was a looting partner with him before they fell out would come out and tell us, this person is stealing. The only thing that was missing from Gashagua's interview was an admission from him that he participated in a particular way. I think the country would also have benefited from a confession. Him confessing that even while I was there, these are the things I participated in. Please forgive me. That, for me, would have been complete. But the fact that now Rigathi Gachagua is a saint is very sad for me because, every time a thief steps out of an office or falls out with another thief who has more influence than he does, that thief enters the hall of sainthood, which is unfortunate. It's the very reason that you have people like Kalonzo Musyoka who call themselves very clean when they're not very clean. You have people like Eugene Wamalwa who are now saying that they can hold the government to account, when we know that when they served in positions in cabinet, including the Ministry of Defense, that they participated, aided and abetted grand corruption in those ministries. I think we have to get to a point where we are not just choosing the lesser evil. And you'll speak to Kenyans and they'll tell you, choose the lesser evil. For me, I think we have another option. We can marshal a force of good. We are not confined to choosing the lesser evil. Here we are now being told that Gachagua, and Gachagua by the way is attending meetings organized by Eugene Wamalwa, DAP party, Martha Karua, and now he's a keynote speaker in these meetings. That is just, it is crazy, because these individuals would have, taken Gashagua's head off should he have still been with William Ruto. And the other thing that also came out, and I agree with Noordean, that the allegations that they're not now allegations. I mean, they're just details that Gashagua gave and JB Muturi gave are an example. And I think those who sponsored his impeachment motion should learn that that is how you present details. Give us specifics of these deals. With the Gashagua's impeachment, the details were scanty. And I think one of the reasons, in my view, and I'm just speculating, one of the reasons could have been that had they given us more details, those details would have incriminated those who were sponsoring the motion. Unfortunately for them, Rigathi Gachagua is not one who knows when to keep quiet. He doesn't. He has nothing to lose, and I would hold that no one destroyed his reputation. He had none to be destroyed or to lose in the first place.
One of your member of LSK sent me a note here telling me to disassociate myself from your statements, especially around looting, and indicate to the audience that those are your remarks. Those are my remarks. They are not Fireside's. It's not Fireside's opinion. But I mean, if Ruto has not been looting, has the devil been looting this country, and through who? That's what I would like. You don't fear litigation, or you'll defend yourself?
I mean, it's fair comment. If somebody wants to come after me and says I have defamed William Ruto for saying that he has looted this country, well and good. I've also said Uhuru Kenyatta looted this country. That is also in the public domain. If there was to be a defense, I would go to the Auditor General's report over the years and lay it bare. The Auditor General has said funds have been misused, funds have been lost. And when funds are lost, you go to the accounting officer. The accounting officer, the chief accounting officer, where the buck stops is with the president.
Not principal secretaries?
Well, with the government. When the government fails, you not line up principal secretaries. You line up the executive, the president, being topmost.
I've seen Nurun nodding in agreement. I don't know whether he's taking up your brief as a lawyer.
People also need to understand the difference between defamation and a fact. If something is true, it's not defaming.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mwangale has been stating facts.
No, listen, it's if anyone would want to go that route, they will lose, of course. He just told you where his evidence is coming from. You would have a very peculiar task. It's like, you remember the case during the Mandamanos. There was one of these cases where Morara was being told that he had defamed the president or something of the sort. I was in that matter. So the question we asked the court was that who's the complainant? Is it DL or is it the president? So DL sent a letter. That is David Lagat said, you're not a complainant. So we said if the president is the one who's the complainant, we need his statement and we need a date to cross-examine him. So the matter died. So if they can...
So you suspect somebody wants to sue Mwangale?
No, I hope they don't. If they do, they'll give him prominence. Let me tell you, do you know, he just said that Rigathi Gachagua had no reputation to lose, all right? Do you know that they are actually building Rigathi Gachagua? And I don't understand why every government does the same thing. You remember when Joe's first term as a governor, he had nothing to write home about at the time. Then he got into a scuffle with Uhuru. That's what gave him prominence. Then he became whatever he is.
With a senior government officer called Nelson Marwa.
Exactly. Now they're doing the same thing with Gashagua. Gashagua has so many ills that people have asked about, all right? But none of them has been addressed.
He's not becoming a saint.
Because now, as rightfully says, now he works with these who are calling themselves, they call themselves the people progressive something. Wanajita Kitu. There's a term they call themselves. So I think in their mind, an enemy of my enemy is my friend, all right? The only travesty I see in this so-called coalition is we are repeating the same thing. In that if, God forbid, it happens and their side takes over, do you know that months into the administration they'll fight? Because when your agenda is just remove that person, once you remove him or her, once you sit then you start fighting because you had no common agenda for the people.
So the glue holding them together is one term.
Yes, it's one term for the president that he should go home. And Gashagua says it, that he must go home. He comes from a point of mi nimeenda home. Sina shida hata nisiporudi lakini na wewe lazima unifuate home. You must all go home together. You get
the Samson principle, collapse the temple.
Everything goes, and that's what he's doing. And that's what I'm saying. The more prominence they give him, the more they attack him, the more missiles he gives us. Because we don't know some of this information that they keep saying, out of secrecy. We would want him to keep spilling. It doesn't mean that he becomes a saint. It's just that now that you are falling out with these people, who you were defending, do you remember those 5 a.m. photos? During Mandamano's... Do you remember those 5 a.m. photos? Right now, the same person who's defending that administration is against it. So you ask yourself, what changed? Was it what? You know, and I'm sure it's not about us. It's not about our needs and our wants. No, it's about them. Might be a deal here or there. Might be political differences. That's what brought about that issue.
Actually, you raised a very fundamental issue. How come when Rigathi Gachagua was the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, and essentially the president's principal assistant, he did not see these roles? How come J.B. Muturi, when he was the Attorney General and a Cabinet Secretary, he did not see these roles that he's talking about? What happened that it's only after you've left office, it's only after you've been impeached, then you sit back and reflect and say, wait a minute. Because you know some of the allegations that the two have made is that State House is the den of corruption.
They said he's the head of procurement. You know,
Chief Procurement Officer.
Chief Procurement Officer. You see, the reason why he was the head of the mariachi singers back then as the assistant to the president, because he's the one who was popularizing the agendas. The president, by the way, lied when he said that Gashagua never went on TV to propel those government policies. He was those shoddy things they were trying to tell us they're doing. The reason why they couldn't speak at the time, or they were not speaking at the time, is because of the eating principle. When you're on the table, dining table, eating manners. All right? So you do not talk as you're eating.
So when you're having a seafood and caviar, you don't talk.
Now when the plate is not there, now when the hunger strikes, sasa ile table manners, you throw it out the window, now you start making noise. But if everything remained as it were, then if Raila never joined government for number one, if those he claims like the PA and whatever from the president's office who actually he feels that were undermined, if they never undermined him, then they'll still be together. And today, we'd never know the things he's telling us.
Are you surprised that Kenyans are now considering Rigiji and J.B. Muturi as saints?
Why would I be surprised? This is Kenya for you. At the end of the day, we have a very long way to go. You see, we have a very long... And I keep saying this, you see, we talk about liberation, revolution. It starts here, man. How do you want to go forward and you're going back to the same oppressor, but now in a different suit? Huko alikuwa anavaa kaunda, for example, na hapa anavaa different abrioni. You know, it doesn't change the person, all right? If we want to have a holistic conversation on how we move forward as a country, if you want to get to a point where we say all those who have stolen from this country have to bring back everything they have stolen, then we can't put in a crony, a fellow crony, because that crony will protect the rest. Because if he or she fights those that came before him or her, they will also spill. Like he rightfully told you, the reason why Gachagua that was the most useless impeachment we could ever see. The reason why there were so many flimsy things that were being raised. Do you know whatever were the charges during voting, what was being discussed in plenary were different things as to the charges. So you ask yourself, don't you have a charge sheet? Can't you read what is there? Really, it was like ile story based to kelele to you get. So at the end of the day, I do believe that the only way we can change this is that we move away from cronies. We are still in that 100 years of Kanu, by the way, because it's a Kanu old boy, it's a Kanu orphans. And that is...
But you see, when you talk about the charges of impeachment, it was a political process. Nobody bothers with the charges.
And that's why I'm saying, listen, they were to vote, all right? You are voting on something that is there. They were like, there's a number.
In other words, when they went to the National Assembly or Senate, they were not waiting for the charges to vote.
I know.
They had already taken a decision.
And that's the problem.
So everything else which was taking place was ceremonial and mechanical.
They're already panel beaten. And we're being told, apparently, or from the grapevine or from whatever Gashagua is saying, that money changed hands. And you know, there's a member of parliament who actually said that and then was forced, I think the Jewish member of parliament, then he was forced to retract that statement in the House.
To eat his words.
Yes.
But he did not suffer from indigestion.
Yeah, you see. So at the end of the day, I keep saying that we hold our future in our hands. But if we believe that exchanging a crony with a bitter crony is the way forward, then we'll keep doing things the same. It's like how Kiambu people, they got angry with Kabogo, let's punish him, let's put this one. Then, hey, this is a clown banner. So let's remove this one. We can't keep repeating the same mistakes.
I'm surprised you haven't used Nairobi as an example.
And you can't use Nairobi. Nairobi is the worst. We are at the bottom of the barrel. You know, we claim to be ahead, but we're the worst, you know, because we have gotten it wrong from 2013.
Whether are you a registered voter?
Yes, I am.
Which county?
Nairobi County.
Okay.
And
so you're suffering from voters' remorse?
You know, at this point, there's nothing that will change.
I think Sharon needs to give you coffee.
Let me also touch on something else that you mentioned. The effect of Gashagua's revelations and J.B. Muturi's on international relations. I've mentioned before that Kenyan presidents, at least beginning with Uhuru Kenyatta, didn't put the country forward or didn't even think about the region when they were engaging in what they called peace building across the region. There was a time, again, I mentioned that when Uhuru Kenyatta was going to open Equity branch in Kinshasa, he was not doing it because he was happy a Kenyan brand was pioneering in Congo. There were other business interests that were taking him there. The fact that you have politicians, businessmen, and mostly politicians, by the way, who now own mines in DRC, and they have now made Kenya a conduit for illegal minerals coming from DRC, illegal gold, illicit minerals that are coming from DRC and Central African Republic, tells you that Kenya has been participating in plundering the DRC. And this is something that has been known to even the politicians in DRC. Unfortunately for the DRC, even their own leaders contribute to the plunder. So it's not like Kenyans are just coming in to... So
you're saying there's a thin line between international trade and plundering?
Well, you can plunder through international trade. Okay. International trade is it's the supply chain. But what Kenya has been doing, and it is unfortunate that you have leaders, and now we're talking about the president. You have a president who makes personal business considerations first before he makes national considerations. The president is a very good farmer. I have seen videos, I have heard stories of his exploits in farming. A splendid farmer, engages in wheat, sugarcane, tomatoes, chicken, everything, literally, I think, across the board. I think if I was to advise the president, if I was to be his personal advisor, I would tell him to do what he's best at. Just do farming.
In DRC?
Well, wherever he would choose to do it. But having a president who thinks about himself first before he thinks about the country is placing us in very precarious positions. Today, when I think we are now done with the IMF program, that tranche of the IMF program, there will be negotiations sometime towards the end of this month over a new program, or whether we are now stepping away from the IMF. And given the stance of Donald Trump regarding Africa mostly, you're likely to see the president decamping from IMF and World Bank. That has its own consequences.
That is Trump or
no, this president, William Ruto, moving away. Not because it would serve the country best if he does that, but because he would have gotten certain offerings elsewhere. And this will be a problem, not
China
just
and the Middle East.
Exactly. This will be a problem not just for his term in office. We are now talking about interest rates that are very crazy and almost immoral on loans that were taken during Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. Uhuru Kenyatta and his regime didn't care who was going to take office and how they were going to handle the debt. William Ruto is going to get us into contracts and dealings that will haunt us for generations. Because some of these people he's dealing with are not even, wanted in their own countries. They have a very short lifespan in their own countries. The other day, I think 2 days ago, Sudan, or at least the government that is the bona fide government in Sudan, warned Kenya that if they continued facilitating the RSF, then there will be dire consequences for the country. That is not a threat that should be taken lightly. When the RSF leaders were here in Nairobi, there was a time I failed to mention, I almost mentioned it, but I didn't want to because...
You're not consulted,
details,
your lawyer.
Yeah. But, they were hosted in very lavish hotels here in Nairobi. Not at their expense. We should determine who paid, but it was not at their expense. And they were treated as kings. When the government comes out to say, whatever they were here to do was not to form a government, they were just here for peace. When the leaders themselves said they were forming a government that now is considered in opposition to the government of the day in Sudan, in whatever form it is, then you are risking the lives of even Kenyans who are in Sudan at the moment. What then happens if the government of Sudan declares any Kenyan persona non grata in Sudan? What happens?
So did you expect those leaders to put up in vibandas across the road?
No, that is not my point. At least not at our expense.
But who knows who pays?
That is my point.
But again, Mwangale, for the longest time, Kenya has been described as the heaven of peace. Yeah. When there was a crisis in Uganda, those leaders would come to Nairobi to negotiate. When there was a crisis in Somalia, in fact, the Somali government was formed in Nairobi. You remember for the longest time, there were two heads of state residing in Kenya. Yeah. The Kenyan president and, of course, the Somali president. I mean, Kenya's midwife for the peace process in South Sudan. When people in DRC want to make statements, they fear making the statements from DRC. They do it here. Yeah. When the fellow facing treason in Tanzania wants to make a statement, he comes and he makes a statement in Nairobi. Is there anything wrong if you allow people to come and make statements, provided they do not assault our constitution and our laws, and provided they're not in any way facilitated by the government of the day?
There's absolutely no problem. And it's a good thing that we were a very stable nation and still are to a great extent, such that our neighbors trusted that we could keep them safe. It is a problem if we are taking sides in the political squabbles of our neighbors.
So would you say if RSF leaders come to Nairobi and they bring their friends to say, how do we make progress in Khartoum, they're being facilitated because the other side has not come to Nairobi?
But it would be a problem if the president is doing business with the head of RSF. That would be a very big problem. That would be a very big problem. In fact, when the conflict was beginning and William Ruto said he wants to mediate that process, I think it was General Mahmoud who said he should not attempt because they know what he has been doing.
But so, would you say there's a bona fide government in Khartoum?
There is a bona fide government in Khartoum. It may be a very weak government. It may be facing a very big opposition, but it still is the recognized government in Sudan. So yes, they are not at a good place, but they control power in Sudan at the moment. And in the foreseeable future, if things do not change, then they will remain the bona fide government, military government in Khartoum.
Yeah, before we segue to the next conversation, from independence, we've had many vice presidents. You can talk about Murumbi, who served as a vice president. There was Moi, there was, everybody. And all of them, when they left government as vice presidents, or when anybody was fired as a cabinet minister, there's nobody who actually went to, then it used to be Chester House for a news conference. Nobody had a news conference at Chester House to discuss the appointing authority, the way Rigiji and Muturi have done. The revelations they've made, as Noordean has suggested, if accurate, they form solid grounds for impeachment. Some of them border on treason, some of them border on sedition. What do these statements tell us about these guys who've been kicked out of office? Or what do they tell us about President Ruto? Because when the former deputy president declares, literally from the top of Mount Kenya, that State House is a den of corruption, when Muturi makes this allegation that President Ruto is unfit to be the president of Kenya, and yet he has been in that cabinet for 2.5 years. For Rigathi, he's been there for about 1.5 years. What do those statements tell us about these people making those allegations and the appointing authority?
One, to the appointing authority, they just say what every Kenyan out here has been saying. That this government is incompetent, and this government is running this country the wrong way. And that is where there are those chants of he must go and him be one time that he really doesn't like hearing. Atazoea tu, ataongea imtoke.
No, so you're encouraging mazoea?
Atazoea, ataongea imtoke. Ataongea itamtoka. Hata leo nimesikia ameongea, but he'll get used to it. As for the ones who are speaking right now, one, they're hypocrites. That's number one. But at the end of the day, that is the SI unit of most politicians in this country. They're hypocrites because now they can speak because they claim to be people-centric, they claim to be visionaries, and they want to help liberate the people from the oppressor. The only reason they're trying to liberate us in courts is because they have fallen out. And you know, they were flocking together because they were birds of the same feather. Right now they can't flock together, is why they are trying to tell us, oh, but they were with. It's just that this is what has happened.
So you're suggesting there's no honor among thieves?
Yeah, this is what has happened. They have left the table, they have come to where we are, and so they want the most, the easiest thing to jail with the people, the easiest thing to act like you. You see, now they want to act like they are you and I, like we are together in this struggle. Well, in essence, we are not.
Hatuko pamoja.
Hatuko pamoja, boss. Hii hapana Jubilee. Hatuko pamoja. So at the end of the day, they have to be honest with themselves first before they try to lie to us, because they can't lie to us.
But given your training as a lawyer, and you have gone through Kenya School of Law, and you are highly regarded as a mediator, do you place a premium on the allegations made by Rigiji and Muturi?
Of course, it has substance, let's be honest. And we don't want them to stop talking. Let them talk. But they need to realize that them trying to portray whatever we know, we just didn't have evidence, but we could tell this government is a shit show. But now that they have these things they claimed, there's evidence, let them bring that out. Let them talk about it. But it will never change who they are. In our eyes, already know who they are. That can never change. So they're just trying to show that they're no longer leopards, but they are. So whatever information they have for us and all they need, we might as well need it. So at the end of the day, I do believe that people will listen to them, but I just hope and pray that we are well informed and we get better, because sadly we are at a point where, you know, these politicians change vehicles. Right now, Gashagua is meant to launch a party next month. He said next month, right? So does that change everything that he has done as deputy president, or all the way to him being a DO? Does that change everything he ever did that was wrong?
And he says he wants to, that he may occasion a mini general election.
That's fine, because you see, let him fight with his adversary, as he sees he's an adversary or former boss. That's okay. But we need to ask ourselves some questions and introspect that where do we want to go as a country, and who are these leaders we need? Because if we go back to those who have been on that same table, the only reason they are crying, most of them, is because they have not eaten. Chakula ijatan side yao, it's dry. And that is why now anyone that is a high-ranking official in ODM and closer to the government of today, you can't tell them anything about William Ruto. Because you remember when Gashagua made those statements he made about the president and JB Muturi, when they went to the Eid Baraza, they were attacking them on behalf of the president. That tells you something. If this so-called, they call it a progressive pro-people movement, that is ODM. You know, ODM, the D is silent. Hakuna democracy hapo. Because when he left, right, ni right. Number one is always right, two, refer to number one, three, whatever. So at the end of the day, this progressive people movement, now that they are in government, they're enjoying the largesse, they're enjoying the opulence in government. They are blind. And that tells you something. These people are all the same. You see that common phrase, oh, monkeys, different forests. But we need to ask, and I go back to us, we need to ask ourselves some questions. But we haven't learned, because if you see how now Gashagua looks like a hero.
Like a saint. Now, Mwangale, on account of your gray hair, you are more knowledgeable than most of us on this matter. Is there room for Mura Wanjiru to actually take Rigathi Gachagua or JB Muturi to court and compel them to reveal this information? Because the Noordean has indicated, I don't know whether it's accurate, that he said if we're in a functional state, these guys would be behind bars. Is there room for a normal Kenyan, described as an active citizen, to actually take these two gentlemen to court and compel them to write give evidence or write statements?
Well, you could go to court, but your chances of getting anything substantial from court would be very limited. And I say that because these statements were made, as political statements. They were just that. They were political pronouncements. They were allegations. If we had strong institutions, then you'd have an institution like EACC proceeding to summon Gashagua, inquire if he has additional evidence to the allegations, and act on those allegations. If you had a DCI or a police service that was not under the direct control of the president, then he would have been summoned to shed light on those allegations. But we do not have strong institutions. That is the only avenue that any Kenyan would have used to bring those allegations to greater scrutiny. If we had a functioning parliament, and again, I have insisted over time that the 13th parliament is the most important parliament we have had across the years. The fact that you have impeachable allegations and you have a parliament that has no moral capacity or moral standing to impeach anyone. Parliament didn't have the moral standing to impeach Gachagua because the things Gachagua was accused of are domiciled in parliament. The things that William Ruto is accused of are also domiciled in parliament. Parliament has been receiving monies from the president. I wish it was possible to do an audit on JB Muturi's finances, just to determine whether he received any monies aside from his salary when he was Speaker of the National Assembly to either pass rulings, to give rulings that were, favorable to the executive at the time. I wish it was possible to do that audit. Because from my observation being on the outside, I think JB Muturi is as guilty as William Ruto in the allegations that he has given to us.
Actually, one of the members of the National Assembly said that he should explain why the budget for Bunge Towers was growing in leaps and bounds.
Probably because they know that he benefited from it. These deals, he only mentioned the Adani deal and the other deal on, I think it's around carbon trading and whatever, because he did not benefit directly. But what other deals did he sign off that he benefited from directly? He has not told us which other deals he signed off that appeared to be, above board for him. So
actually, Mwangale, you have two questions from a member of the panel. One is asking, the contract that Muturi says he was requested to sign at the airport somewhere in Dubai, in the event that he signed that contract in Dubai, would it be legally binding for Kenya?
Well, it is irrelevant where the contract is signed. As Attorney General, he moves with his...
It's an institution.
His office, yeah. So even if he was in Russia and a contract was brought to
even in Greenland,
it would have bound the country either way. So it is really relevant.
Yeah, a lady called Isabel Obara says everyone is entitled to their opinion. Mwangale is rightfully stating what is public knowledge. Public knowledge that we'd like to whisper. Seems that she's in agreement with you. And then the same Isabel says the LSK rep that Dismus is making reference to should get a refresher program on the difference between slander and defamation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So do you think you are a candidate for a refresher program on slander and defamation?
Me? Why did I say?
Noordean mentioned it rightly.
Yeah.
He actually gave the distinction. I think you had read somebody.
There's an LSK rep who had said something.
Yeah.
Then I told you, if it's a fact, it's not defamation. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I'm done now with trading into dangerous ground. Now, Mwangale mentioned something about Navaholo, and that is where it's in the neighborhood of Butere girls. And there was something referred to as the echoes of war. So we understand that Butere, they do very well, and there was a play that for some reason people decided to stop it at the topmost. And Kenyans were asking if there is a play that hurts Kenya's national and public interest, where was the government machinery from, I don't know whether it begins at the zonal levels, up to the top? Did anybody not notice that maybe the content was unacceptable? And number two, does the Kenyan constitution give us the rights on association, expression, all these manner of things? And then, we in Kenya has got capacity to say that a play is unacceptable.
First and foremost, what happened to Butere Girls was unfortunate, number one. Then number two, the issue of saying how comes there was no intelligence to stop this at the zonals or whatever. Why do you want to stop it? I thought when we were doing this set books and Fasihi, so it's more or less about, they're depicting what is in the community. And if it's not true, why are you triggered? Why are you really triggered? If I say something and it's not, if today you come and tell me, but then you don't have a beard, and I know I have one, why am I triggered?
Well, you may think it's a fake beard.
You see, if I know it's real, why am I triggered? And is that how you handle the situation? Why do you tear gas children? Why do you, and Sifuna put it rightly, msiba kujitakia. Now those school-going children, school-going children were chanting Ruto must go as they left there, right? The same chant he hates, right? So you look at it, the excesses in government, a government that does not want divergent opinions, a government that wants to be praised. We can't praise you, we're not praise singers, Of course, there are those who are close to the president who will do that because they want a tender here or there, some 2K, 3K, 10K, 100, but not all of us are like that at the end of the day. So I do believe they mismanage that entire affair. Let the children have their day. Just a whole president fighting with Form 2 West or Form 3 East. What do you gain by that? And
you seem to be repeating Rigiji's statements.
No, listen. You see,
but Rigiji picked those statements
from Noordean.
They are not his.
He picked them from Noordean.
I told you they're trying to be like the citizens. You see, they're trying to endear themselves. Here's the thing. Let me ask you a question, Dismus. If they went ahead and performed, of course, they were going to win. So he didn't want them to perform that in front of him. Because you see, whoever wins performs in front of the president. So let them perform so that you understand kwa ground. So kwa ground number is different because those who are close to you that keep telling you everything is okay. But then again, I told you he doesn't take advice. So of course, those PAs or it all are just useless and their advices. At the end of the day, those were the best advisors to tell him the real state of affairs in this country. He lives in a bubble where he says today that the economy is doing well. Tomorrow, the Minister of Finance tells us that things are bad and they'll only get worse. You have 2, 3, 4, 5 years for things to get better. So you ask yourself, who do we listen to, you or this guy who came the other day? You realize. So at the end of the day, I believe they mismanaged that entire issue and they gave Cleophas Malala too much profile and attention that he didn't deserve.
Actually, if I were in a position to advise the state on this matter of Butere girls, I would have encouraged them to encourage Butere to perform. And whoever wins goes to State House to do it. And in the event that Butere girls does not win, they still get invited to State House under a special category.
Yes.
And then you thank the principal or even whoever who came up with the scripts and say, thanks for giving us facts and figures. Thanks for kuletea vile ground inasema. And then you give them a special recognition. In the US, they call it triangulation. Yeah. That you see what the competition is doing or your political adversary, and you own the process. Because I understand for people, thespians who've socialized with the content, that it's actually reflecting what is happening in the society. And because you've said the president lives in a bubble, he probably doesn't know what is happening outside the State House or outside the rallies. And this was a proper reflection. But again, on the flip side, if people suggest there were content which is unacceptable, where were the relevant, like the national government officers, national administration officers? Where were they all the way? Kutoka mashinani, paka the top.
Well, if I may just jump in. You see, this is what happens with music and drama. As the pieces move from the zones upwards, usually a screening is done before the administration, the school administration, before now those pieces advance to a higher level. Say they're now going to the regionals. A screening is done before the whole school. It happens across schools. So say the play is screened before the principal, the teachers, and the whole school. What I have gathered, and I've had some time to reflect on this issue. I think Kenyans need to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. Because there's something that the state has done, which is wrong, but there are opportunities for us to learn a few things and correct a few things around our schooling and our education as a whole. The reason I say that is this. There have been allegations, and I saw a letter going round. I don't know whether it's authentic or not. On face value, it appears authentic. A letter from the school principal of Butere Girls summoning the teacher in charge of drama to explain why the contents of the play changed by the time.
As screened.
Yes, as screened before the administration, and as it left the regional stage to the national stage, that there are contents that had been changed.
A few paragraphs were inserted.
Yeah, exactly. Whether they reflect the state of affairs of the country or not, but they were changed. So it appears that the school principal was not aware, or she may have been aware, but because something has been generated out of this, now the drama
she's escaping liability.
Summoned. One of the things that happens, it is acceptable across institutions, is usually you have a teacher, a TSC teacher, who is in charge of music, in charge of drama. But most times you have people who are thespians, people who are musicians, some who have just left high school, some who are in campus, and others who are just professionals who come in to offer expertise. Some may script plays, as Malala has been doing for other schools in the Western region. Some would come to direct plays that have been written by the school, offer that technical support. Some would come and arrange music. Some would come and compose, and so on. The acceptable practice is that when you have an outsider who is just contracted by the school, they have to act under the direction of the TSC registered teacher in that institution. Now, it is just unfortunate that this play is a reflection of what is happening in the country. It appears to be a political statement, a critique of of the government of the day. But I kept asking myself over this past week, what if that play had some form of extremism somewhere? What if, for example, somebody in the coast came from the MRC and they scripted a play, and that play, because it was judged on the content, on the elocution, on delivery, it moved to the national stage? Would we still have the same sentiments that the government should not interfere? And I have arrived at the conclusion that the education actors ought to develop more stringent regulations on who, aside from the TSC registered teachers who are employed by the schools, is allowed to offer technical advice in the arts in schools. And I'm saying this because I was once a choir trainer. At the time when I began training choir, I was a teacher. I was teaching. I was not a registered. I was an untrained teacher. Well, most of us did that after high school for about 2 years or so. So while I was teaching, I was under a TSC registered teacher. When I left that institution and went to do other things, when I would come to the school, I was contracted to do that. Now, it is fortunate for us that you have an individual who does not want to indoctrinate students. I don't believe that Malala wants to indoctrinate Butere girls. But what if we had an individual who did that? So for me, I think, aside from what we have gathered from this process, it is now an opportunity for the Ministry of Education to develop more clear, if they're not just stringent, they should be clearer guidelines on people who are contracted to offer that technical advice and to give technical capacity in the arts in our schools.
Some quality control.
Yes, exactly. One other thing that, again, is unfortunate. We know that Malala did the play Shackles of Doom because he was opposed to Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. He had fallen out at one point. He was arrested and transported, according to him, within 2 hours to Mumias. He again has scripted this because he's opposed to William Ruto's government. For me, it's just unfortunate that he's the person to do this because we have teachers across those institutions who would have scripted the plays.
What if he has talent?
Talent to script. I mean, there's absolutely no problem. And that's what I'm saying. It's just unfortunate that he's the person who has scripted the play.
Why is it unfortunate?
It's unfortunate because we know why he's doing it. You know, a normal teacher who is, supervising drama and music, doing that, that would be an artistic expression in their employment. But we know why Malala is doing it. We know that he wants it to be seen by, the president. Yeah, and he wants some traction to be generated from this. That's what I'm saying. It's unfortunate.
He wants to occasion the president some discomfort.
Exactly. So if you have an individual, and people have been saying, the girls have the freedom to express themselves. One of the realities is this. It's an uncomfortable reality, but it's a reality that the girls didn't write that script. It's not that the school chose girls who were opposed to the government of the day and told them, you are the ones who will do this play. They were just doing it. If they were given a play on agriculture, they would actually have done it. Would we then have said that, Butere girls, after conserving the environment or promoting agriculture? But I think we need to weigh both sides. Number one, the state was very wrong to muzzle these girls. And Butere Girls is also unique because the First Lady studied at Butere Girls and actually taught at Butere Girls at some point. There was a claim some time back, and this claim arose after the former principal of Butere Girls passed away, that something happened. There was a contribution that was made to Butere Girls that was misappropriated. The principal may have been forced to do something that was not right. She was transferred 2 days after she was forced to do that. It occasioned some pain and suffering to her that later led to her illness and demise. So we must also look at that. I mean, why the constant attention on Butere Girls, that Butere Girls should play a certain tune, that they should not be seen to offend the state or to embarrass the state. Why that constant attention on that school?
It's not this feedback here from a gentleman called Fuzzy Craft. He says, why was this not a problem when Nairobi hosted Uganda opposition leaders? Obviously, that is the feedback. But before we go to the controversial opinion, and this comes to Noordean, is there a chance that, seeing what has happened to the Butere Girls play, that teachers and thespians will feel restrained when they're putting together content for next year?
That's what they want to do. And we are going to have some silly rules like, before a play moves or before the children go through it, it has to be forwarded for it to be approved. Remember those stories that churches are being told to bring forward their sermons of the week? That's where we are going. They're trying to take.
Where was that?
There were allegations that some pastors were saying that they're being told to bring forward their sermons, which is quite unfortunate.
In Kenya or North Korea?
In Kenya, where we are right now, right? Because they are trying to take us to a dark place. That's a sad reality, and that can never happen. We can never allow it. But as he rightfully says, it is unfortunate that the government failed, and I keep saying this. They gave Malala too much
attention
and mileage. You see, do you look at what he said immediately after? We are going to go and take this to the next level, take it to the National Theatre. We are going to bring adults to act on this. So he has achieved one thing, one mileage that he was looking for that is political. Of course, not to the level where he wanted it to go. Because if they performed in front of the president, he was waiting for that smirk on his face, you see. But they have given him the mileage. The girls have lost the chance to do that, right? I don't know if they're ever going to perform it. But at the end of the day, whatever they are trying to perform is the reality. But my take home, I was very sad because I came to understand that the only time elected women leaders can speak for the girl child or women is when a governor is pregnant. But when school-going children can be tear-gassed, can be handled the way they were handled, they're all quiet.
You know, Noordean, that's a loaded statement. Would you like to elaborate?
You see, the other day we were taking around a circus where elected and nominated women leaders came on TV. They were making noise telling us, oh, people from Nakuru should not ask where their governor is. She's on maternity leave. And maternity leave has an expiration date, by the way. And those people from Nakuru... For
governors?
No, for everyone. It's the same. It's the same. And those people, some are claiming she hasn't been in the county for 8 months. Mm-hmm. And they have a right to question that. So who are you to tell them that, oh, don't ask questions? Mm-hmm. So it's okay if
the county is getting twins, they should be happy.
Yeah, and if they're getting twins, of course, population, they
should make merry.
You see? So
bring it to a dance and song.
So at the end of the day, if you can come out and make noise about that, and you're all quiet. I saw one statement, I think Pasaris was trying to do something which failed, as obvious. You see, at the end of the day, I was sad. And if that's the kind of leadership these so-called elected leaders want, the 2/3, then there's no difference with them not even being in parliament.
So you did not expect male elected leaders to make a comment around Butere, but you expected female elected leaders to make a comment?
Here's the thing. All leaders, any sane leader who is not captured and recaptured by this government through either a way of making money here and there, should see that what happened was wrong, number one. The actions, and I ask myself, when these police men and women are not human beings, you know some things they do, you ask yourself, don't you have children? Would you tear gas your own children? Would you react like that to one-year-old's family members? You see, even if you have an oath of office, there's an oath of office that is, honestly, but that I digress. So I'm a bit angry on how the situation was handled, right? But I do believe that moving forward, we need to handle things better. But this government will not change because anything that they feel is anti-them, anything that pinches them, they feel that you are targeting them. And they do that because they want to be praised. They feel that they are all-knowing. And the problem comes from the head, where the head feels that he's all-knowing and no one can advise him. And so the issue of Butere girls is quite unfortunate because you see the question you've raised about former principal has never been, that issue just was forgotten. Those claims that were alleged, nothing was done. You see, and we don't want a situation where, you remember that setback, Ifo Kisimani? You know, we are back there. It's like we're just repeating history. And it's quite sad, but then again, this is Ruto's government. I'm not even shocked. But next week we get a new blunder. I'm not even shocked.
You appear really sad. Mwangale, what is your controversial opinion?
Well, as I go to the controversial opinion, people are saying history is repeating itself. It looks like Kifo Kisimani, Kisima Chaginingi, betrayal, and all those books are repeating themselves or were predictive. But I mean, our leaders have been the same. They were speaking about Moi during that time. Now you have to have a new crop speaking about William Ruto. My controversial opinion is on churches today. Today, politicians are all over. I saw a poster.
From Sunday?
But today they were taking something else. I think it was a wave offering by politicians. But I saw a poster that was full of politicians. You'd be mistaken to think it's
a political rally.
Yeah. And my controversial opinion is on how churches self-regulate. I think it's time that the church umbrella organizations rein in on their individual denominations, because if you have pulpits being turned into stages and podiums, then you are losing really what church is supposed to be about. If we continue having a scenario where politicians wait, and I think they no longer attend burials, because I think burials have lost the premium stage they were.
Your statements would suggest that you're not from Western Kenya.
I am from Western Kenya. That's what I'm saying. They no longer value burials as they did before. They are now looking at churches because in church you will find more people than you would in the barrio, and they will just be listening to you. They are not allowed to heckle you in church, so they will just listen. But I think the church umbrella organizations need to rein in and give directives that politicians should not be allowed to politic. In any case, politicians should not be allowed to give speeches in church, whether you have called them to support you to build whatever you're building, whether you have called them for Arambes or whatever. I think it's time that we made those church grounds hallowed again.
But would you blame people who come up with, understand they're referred to as prosperity gospel churches, and they've got a business model. So if you've got a high value client coming in, would you stop them from expressing their views?
Well, mine was to churches. There are some that are not churches, though they have the name. They're just businesses that happen to pray more than other businesses.
There we go.
And there are some you get slapped. There are some you get slapped, and becomes an entire comedy show.
But the gentleman who was slapped, can he pursue that matter in court?
That's battery.
Yeah, it is.
What about the other lady who said that, this guy was concentrating, so I was letting him up.
What's interesting, how is it her business that he's sleeping? It's not her business, and as he rightfully says, it's quite sad. And that's why most of these religious leaders, and it's not just about Christianity, even in Islam, it's good to have regulations. We have to have regulations. They are up in arms about having regulations, but we need to have them. Rwanda did, at the end of the day. Some churches in this country are more or less business enterprises for some people. You remember what happens to these people who do these fake miracles? And people die. Unaambiwa wacha kumeza dawa, I've healed you, and then you die. And there's no action that is taken against
Are fake miracles criminal offenses?
I think they would amount to, there's something called the Witchcraft Act.
Yes.
And there are certain offenses there that I think some of these places that call themselves churches and some of these people who call themselves preachers, prophets, and claim to administer miracles, they would be found guilty. An offense was pursued against them under the Witchcraft Act.
You know what is impressive about the Catholic Church is that before you stand before an audience or a congregation in church, you must have a bachelor's degree in philosophy and in theology, and you've been trained as a deacon. So you, outside having this knowledge, you've got an element of discipline. But what one finds out about these prosperity gospel churches, all of them, all their pastors, the prophets you're talking about, the disciples, all of them are PhDs without a bachelor's and without a master's. I don't know how it happens, whether there's some sort of, voodoo, your controversial opinion, in the interest of time.
Mine goes to our administration. You see,
as predicted.
And hey, that's it. The truth of the matter is
it's because you're consistent. Maybe that's a good thing.
The truth of the matter is that we have a very thin-skinned president who is triggered by criticism, disappointment, rejection. It's like he wants to be loved. He's obsessed with that, and I think he has enough people to love him. So who are closer to him, which is a nuclear family. But at the end of the day, everything he does, everything he says, it's more or less like the making of a dictator. That's what he would want to be, his actions, where you do not want to see any different opinion to your opinion. And that's why I say he's thin-skinned. He's triggered by trivial things. And they say if it jiggles, it's fat. If it jiggles, it's fat. So if you feel like what people are saying triggers you the wrong way, then it's true. The same way they would say, don't blame the mirror if you're ugly. If you're ugly, you're ugly. So if you're incompetent, you're incompetent. If you're not working, you're not working. And that's why you see most of these leaders are up in arms and angry. And before I forget, and that's why you see you have a government that, in as much as Gashagua is a propagandist, the same government has propagandists. And you listen to what the deputy spokesperson, that is Monisha Chizuga, was alluding to, about claiming that Malala wanted to enter a dormitory with school girls.
Who is that?
That is Maisha Chizuga.
Who is that?
I think she's a deputy spokesperson or something.
Okay. Because I just wanted to establish.
You see, that was the government response to what happened. Again, incompetence. And again, why would you come up with such a narration? You realize, and if it's true, I'm sure by now things would have rolled. Malala would have been in a very bad place as opposed to what we were told he was fighting somewhere, somewhere. Apparently, we don't know. So at the end of the day, I think this government just needs to realize that people will not love you and wake up from that dream that you want people to just follow you blindly. And in as much as you have thin skin, which they have, there are things you have to let go. Avoid some things. Learn to ignore some things. But since you want to micromanage everything, like how those who get appointed get micromanaged, you'll have a very rough time because tomorrow, I'm sure, this week, this government will have another blunder. Every week has a blunder. And I'm sure this week there'll be another blunder that they'll be ranting about. He might be in a church somewhere ranting, and so will his officials. But at the end of the day, to realize that they need to keep rolling with the punches. If not, a time will come when they won't be there.
As we come to the end, a very interesting feedback. I'll read only two. One is directed to Noordean. The member of the audience said that you've earned the title as the chief government critic. And for Mwangale, you've earned the title as a young man full of wisdom. That has been Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and politics.
Well, thank you to both.